Thank you, thank you. Thank you. Listen. Listen, the main act is still to follow, yeah? You know, I was standing out there and I'm listening to the intro and I'm thinking, you know, when you got the big rock stars, the big rock show comes on, they send the other guys out to do the early acts. And then the main band comes out afterwards. I'm a little like that today, so the main band is somebody else. But it's wonderful. First of all, what is an undergrad college in Delhi doing with something as fabulous as this? I thought undergrad colleges were meant to be little classrooms, you know. Look at this. Sorry? You're postgrad. See there, postgrad as well. But this is wonderful. And I'm delighted that so many of you have come to listen to, well, for want of a better word, a tech star. And one of the things I'm going to be asking him, and maybe I should ask you first, actually, because yours is actually currently the only generation that matters in India. Others don't matter. We talk, you matter. So, no, that's true. I'm not trying to play to the gallery, don't worry. Because your generation can see through it right away, right? So who are the latest rock stars, man? Are the latest rock stars the movies or the cricketers or the technology stars? CEOs are the big rock stars. Gee, man, we're all in the wrong business. Okay, since you're all the rock stars, let me call him. He's sort of simple, like you and me. Went to college like all of us, maybe dreamt like all of us, and then just went and did some things, yeah, which I'm sure some of you are going to do as well. So since the verdict has come out loud and clear, let's call Sundar Pichai. And since all of you are taking pictures, let me get out of them for a while. Come on, take all you want. I told you, I was asking him this just before I came out, and I was asking him the question I was asking all you guys, and he said, I don't know. But I did ask them. I said, who are the latest rock stars? Is it the music groups? Is it the movie stars? Is it the cricketers? They said the CEOs. So what's it telling you about the India you're reaching out to?
Harsha was one when I was growing up.
Nonsense. See, I told you he knows how to say the right things. No, but isn't it interesting that a tech star, and for all that you might say about being a good, simple South Indian, unassuming, you are one. What does it say about India that a tech star gets this kind of reception?
You know,
can everyone hear? Yeah, okay. Okay.
Yes or no? Yes?
Right.
Yes, okay, great.
You know, a few years ago, I'd come to India, and I was, you know, this was in Mumbai, and I was getting off the car, trying to go in for a meeting. And there was a person who came, opened the door of the car, and I was walking in, and, you know, he said, I listened to your Google I/O speech, and it was phenomenal, and which is our developer conference. And, you know, it struck me, wow, there's no other country in the world where the person who came and, you know, helped me get out and go into the hotel had watched, you know, a technical speech like that. So I do think there's something unique about India that way. You know, I think people are interested in technology, which I think is great. You know, I couldn't ask for anything better. So thank you for that interest.
Wonderful. But Sundar, you are a young man too. You still are, even if you're much younger than I am, but you still are. And a lot of people in this room are dreaming about tomorrow. It's a beautiful part of India that's in this room, and they're all dreaming about tomorrow. And it would be interesting to ask, what did you dream about? When when there was time to dream about tomorrow for you? Were you just sitting waiting to take on the world? Or?
There was a couple things. I did, not for fun, but I did dream of, just like I'm sure like many Indians dreamt of being a cricketer. I used to be a huge...
You did?
Yeah, I used to be a huge fan of, sorry, I'm old, but I used to be a huge fan of Gavaskar, when he was playing. And later on Sachin when he played, but, so I always, had a dream. On a more serious note, I always loved technology growing up, and, so I had dreams of just not exactly what I would do, but I wanted to, at that time, I used to read about what was happening in Silicon Valley, and, I wanted to go be a part of it. So I didn't exactly dream a career as much as a destination and wanting to be there.
Sitting in IIT Kharagpur, there was no Google then.
No? Okay.
You're sitting in IIT Kharagpur in a room that wasn't quite as fancy as this hall is, and there is no Google, so how are you keeping in touch with what Silicon Valley is doing, and how are you dreaming? And
wow, I have to think about that for a minute. There was no internet too, and it was pre all that. Mostly reading, and my uncle had gone to the States, and I was interested in semiconductors and so on. And William Shockley, the person who kind of invented semiconductors, was from Silicon Valley. So I'd read a story about him staying, working through at Stanford close to Christmas Eve, and so stuff like that. So, for what I was interested in, I knew that that's where it was happening.
But now, there's a new generation that's coming, and I feel the generation gap every few minutes.
Yeah.
But Google and you both have to stay relevant, not just to the people in this room, but to a generation earlier than them. So how do you stay relevant? How does Google always stay relevant?
It's a good question. In the technology world, everything changes in such a fast pace. Given you were asking questions about when I went to school, in the 80s, the personal computers were just getting underway. And, in 10 years from then, I just gone to the US, and the internet, as we know, came into existence. And 10 years after that, mid-2000s, when the first smartphones came into being, right? Android didn't even exist 10 years ago. And but kind of shows you how much things change. And so a lot of what we do is to figure out what that next wave is, and you have to do that. You have to reinvent yourself. Part of the reason we are all very interested in India is, it's an amazingly young country. It's a vast country. And so in many ways, we do think the trends of the future will come from places like that, so largely explains our deep interest in places like India.
Just to tell you how much India has changed, there's a young man there who's taking a selfie of you from as far as just hoping that you're somewhere in the picture somewhere. One of the things I read about you, it said Sundar Pichai is Sundarajan, right? To give you the whole name.
It actually was Sundararajan. No one could pronounce it, yeah.
No, we can. There's Sundararajan.
Yeah.
Good. I grew up in Hyderabad, Telugu boy, so whatever. Marathi boy, Telugu boy. But they said he's an example of the fact that good guys can finish first. Now, on this one, the teachers are clapping more than the students.
I wasn't exactly a good guy at school, though.
Well, a good guy doesn't necessarily have to be 98%. Just a good guy is a decent person. That's what I've been told about you.
Don't believe everything you say.
So are you... And that brought more cheers. So you're not the Rahul Dravid of the tech industry.
I don't know everything about Rahul,
no, I'll
but
tell you
I knew he had good technique. That's all I know about him.
No, I'll tell you, a lot of us with a simple middle-class background, and I can relate entirely to what Sundar is saying, we find it very difficult to talk about ourselves. So maybe that question was was a little wrong. Is Google a fun place, or is it a place for workaholics?
No, I think it's, it's a lot more balanced than people realize. It's an amazingly fun place. I think it is, I did feel like when I first went to Google, I was like a kid in a candy store, there is, you walk around, people are working on amazing things, and so really stretches your mind.
One of the things we talk about in sport is that sometimes it's easier to get to number one than stay number one, and Google has done an amazing job of staying number one. Mm-hmm. How do you handle that challenge? Because when you are number one, everyone wants to be you. So how do you take on the challenge of staying number one?
From our perspective, and I think it's true for in technology in particular, the world keeps changing, as I said earlier. So, a big part of what I focus on at any given time is making sure we are innovating and building products for the future. It's just got to be a normal course of how you think. And so, we are constantly thinking about what to do next. So, Android is very popular. People are using smartphones. But, I always sit and think about what is the next version of how people use computing, right? And so we are thinking about, things like virtual reality or augmented reality. So these are all new areas, but we are constantly thinking about it. And so you have to do that on a constant basis to push forward.
Because Google's a great example. The tech world is littered with shooting stars that came up, that shot, that lit up the world, and literally like meteors went away. Google has been phenomenally successful in bucking that trend.
Yeah, and I think we've always had a very ambitious mission. We wanted to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible. I think in the context of smartphones and how people use it around, if anything, that mission is even more relevant. There's a lot more information which people consume, so we want to do a better job of that. And we feel like we are in early days of that mission, with things like what we call as machine learning and artificial intelligence. We'll be able to do much better with all of these things. And so for us, the journey is just getting started.
One of the reasons everyone here, I suspect, is excited to meet you is you are what they would like to be. An Indian who studied here, went overseas, and did what everyone would dream of doing. Is it mandatory even today, you think, for people in this room, for an Indian to go west to become a tech star?
I hope not. I think one of the things which is exciting, I'm excited to be speaking here, is, I do think there are many, many different paths you take. And I think especially I was telling someone on the way over here, last week someone on Twitter tweeted to me and said, thank you on behalf of Indians, this was Indian American, but he tweeted to me and said, thank you on behalf of all Indian Americans for not being a doctor. And, showing other paths exist. And I hope it's the same. Being in the US, I find people take a remarkably varied number of paths. And, so I do think it's important to follow your dream and do something which you're excited by. So I think if you follow your heart and do what you like, you will always do much better. And so I don't think it matters that you're an engineer or you're in science, or it could be in any field. And I think you're a good example of having gone to IIM and switching and being at that time I distinctly was impressed by the fact that you were bold enough to do something like that. But I think it's phenomenal. You did something which you followed your heart, and I think those are examples.
It's one of those moments when the head of Google says he knows you. It's like a friend of mine plays for Australia, Matthew Hayden. We became friends. And when Usain Bolt won the 100 meters, he was asked about his love for cricket, and he said, my favorite's Matthew Hayden. And his children said, but you are our coach. Why does he know you? So anyway, yeah, because increasingly it's becoming easier to do what you want in this country, because you don't have to go through standard infrastructures and clearances. What Google has done is it's almost given flight to a lot of young dreams. Yeah. And that surely must please you enormously, that Google is now seen as this pathway almost.
It's exciting for me to see. I mean, one thing I would add is it's not just doing. Another thing I've noticed over time is you will have many opportunities to reinvent yourself, and so so I think it's worthwhile taking risks and trying to do something you're really, excited by. And if the first attempt you don't do it, you can try again, and things tend to work out in the long run.
Since you brought it up, it wasn't in a set of questions I'd worked on, but the attitude to failure in this generation is very different from mine. Mm-hmm. In my generation, to fail was to commit a crime. Mm-hmm. And yet what you're talking about is go do what you want, and there's always comebacks, aren't there?
That's right, yeah. And, I think that's how, in Silicon Valley, part of the reason so many people start up a company is, starting up a company and even having failed, you can wear it like a badge of honor, right? And I think that's important, culturally, risk is rewarded. I remember when I started working at Google, if I went and, people were discussing ideas, the other people who heard the ideas try to build on those ideas. They encourage you. So it's a culture of optimism. It's a culture of risk-taking, and I think that's really important. So.
Okay, just a couple before we start taking questions from everybody. You talked about cricket, but you tweet about Barcelona.
I'm a huge, football fan as well, I remember when I was young, waking up driving my mom crazy because I would wake up in the middle of the night to watch World Cup soccer at that time and to watch the Brazilian team in those days, in the 80s. And, I continue to, cricket and soccer are two sports I follow. I follow actually football more now because it's easier to follow it there. And I'm a very big Barcelona and a Messi fan.
All you guys who wanted to talk about Cristiano Ronaldo, don't.
I don't know whether you saw the recent El Clasico in which Barcelona won 4-0.
If there are any Real Madrid fans, they just have to keep quiet, right? You can't do anything. So Test cricket or T20, Sundar? Because he grew up in Madras, not in Chennai.
Yeah, there you go.
And Madras is as Test cricket as you can get.
I was telling Harsha just before we walked in, I was fortunate enough to go and see most of you may not remember, but in the 80s, in 1986, we had it was a second tie test, I think, between India and Australia. And I was in the stadium then, and somebody had given me tickets because they thought the match was going to be a draw. But, I always thought Test cricket was amazing. I had the time to watch it then, too. But, I followed the transition to one days very, very well. T20s, I catch it, but it was something I didn't grow up with. So, I don't enjoy it as much as I do one day or Test cricket, but it's exciting too.
Okay, since you're here, I'm reproducing a line somebody told me. They said, in the Google era, Test cricket is threatened.
In the Google era?
In the Google era. Where everything is at your fingertips, everything is moving so fast, yeah.
But, some things stand the test of time, so
yes,
hopefully.
They do. I'm a big Test cricket fan anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, one last question before I throw open the questions for you. What next for Google? And I know I'm going to come back at the end to ask you that question separately too, but there's glass, there's cardboard, there's cars. Can Google make 150 kilometers an hour bowlers?
If we could do that, I would just, secretly use it to just make myself the fastest bowler in the world. I think there are many things we are working on. Things which I'm excited by are, most of what we do today in computer science is, by engineers coding, and these are hand-coded systems. Over time, what we call as machine learning, or an extension of that, artificial intelligence, we'll be able to, in a learned way, build systems which automatically learn and do things. And that is, we already do it today. So for example, when you talk about self-driving cars, the way the cars recognize that it's a stop sign or a pedestrian, these are machine learning. These are what we call as deep neural nets, and they automatically learn what they are doing. So these are incredibly powerful things to come in the future. And so I think we are barely scratching the surface. And things like that will apply to healthcare, many, many fields. And so, there's a lot left to do.
One day, the self-driving cars will learn how to drive in Delhi.
that one is pretty hard, yeah.
Okay, excellent. We've got questions from you, and it's incredible how many of you wrote in and asked questions. Geez, he's wearing a Google shirt as well. Okay. Okay, the question comes from Chandra Nair. Chandra, there you are from Kulachi Hansraj Model School. Have I got the pronunciation right?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Chandra, your question.
My question is, what would you have been if not the CEO of Google?
Wow, I would have taken, I'm not that picky, football or cricket, I would have been okay with either. I think I would have still been building software products, that's what I love to do, and, I always was fascinated by the fact that, with software, if you had an idea in your head, you could make it happen and you could see the outcome of what you did. And, I love building products at the end of the day, and, it's what I would have liked to do.
It's the old thing, isn't it? When remember my father telling me when we were growing up, become whatever you want, but just try and become the best at it. So if you want to build products, just try and become the best at it, don't you? Okay, I think we're going left to Soumya Joshi from SRCC.
Hi,
Soumya,
I'm Soumya. Hi, Sundar. Hi, Harsha. So my question for Sundar is, I'm right here.
There you are, yes.
So my question for you is, what motivated you to switch fields from first metallurgy to management to computer science? And did you ever feel incompetent or even a bit insecure while working with people who were given more qualified in that field than you were?
My background, so I was always interested in technology, and the first chance I could get to program, I learned programming, and so for me, I never thought of it as switching fields as much as when the internet started happening. It took me a while to realize the power of it, and it became obvious to me for the first time we are going to have something which could connect one day all of humanity and would profoundly transform what people did. So I wanted to be a part of that, so part of that journey. So that's how I thought of it, and so I didn't think of it as necessarily switching careers. To answer your second question, absolutely. I would actually encourage all of you. If at some point in your life, you have to work with people where you feel a bit insecure, right? That's essential, because that means you're working with people who are better than you and who are pushing you, right? And so I always encourage, if you actually feel very secure in what you do, that means you're doing something comfortable and you're not pushing yourself. And so there are many, many times I've felt working with people in a group, am I doing enough? These people seem much better than me, and I think that's an inherent part of learning.
Chief, if there's one thing you want to take away from this hour you're getting with Sundar, may it be that. Let yourself be insecure from time to time. It's a lovely thing. The moment you start to get secure, and I can tell you we all, because we've seen a little bit more life, the moment you get secure, you're actually moving backwards. Okay, we've got a video question, and it's coming from IIT Kharagpur. So can we get the video question, please?
Hello, Mr. Pichai. Greetings from IIT Kharagpur. My name is Hardik Katyarwal. My question is, recently startups from IITs have been on the rise, and they're set to transform India into the Silicon Valley of the East. So from your point of view, how much impact do these startups really have on India's progress, and how do you think this impact will change the face of the nation in the coming years?
I'm not sure I got a last spot, but
how will this change the pace of the nation in the coming years?
Every year or 2 years, whenever I make these trips back here, I've always been waiting for this change in India. It was only when I came last year, I felt it very viscerally that, the startup culture had really taken hold here. It's incredible to see. For the scale of India over time, you do need entrepreneurs to tackle and build things for India and for globally. And, I think it's a unique opportunity India has. And, all the elements which you need is already here, and so I think India is very, very well positioned to do. The entrepreneurs I meet, we had, as part of me being here, along with Rajan, who heads Google India, we hosted a set of entrepreneurs, and, I spent a bunch of time talking to them. When I see entrepreneurs here, they seem no different to me than the kind of people I meet in the Valley. So intrinsically, I think India can do the same kinds of things. And as the internet becomes more mainstream, people feel more confident, you have a much larger domestic market to tackle, that'll give you the confidence to tackle not just a local market, but global problems as well. So I think we're very well positioned.
Would it be fair to say that the number of entrepreneurs in a system is almost a measure of the confidence of a generation?
Yeah, I mean, the one good thing about India is I think, there's always been, whenever in India I used to walk around and go to some remote corner and find a tea stall, I always felt there is an entrepreneur there somewhere who saw that opportunity. So I think that streak has always existed. But I do think this generation, to your earlier point, I think is less, afraid to take risks and follow a conformist path, which is good.
Excellent. I hope this realized somewhere that the generation before allowed them to do that, but that's okay. Okay, let's go to Shrey Goswami. Shrey, there you are. From Purnima
Hi,
University, are you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Hi, Sundar, and hi, Harsha. Yeah, I just want to ask that there are a large number of developers who are students and developing quality apps, and they have startups as well. So how Google is planning to help them or support them apart from GBG or GDG groups?
Developers are, I think, the bloodline of software, right? I mean, like, the more developers you have, you'll have more ideas and problems getting solved. India is, uniquely positioned. There's tremendous interest in software development compared to most countries in the world. One of the things which we announced, as part of me coming here, is we have a new program underway we are investing now. We plan to do this over the next 3 years to train 2 million new Android developers. And we are doing that in partnership with 30 universities. And so I'm incredibly excited by that. And, because for me, getting that many developers out there in the workforce, some of them will be entrepreneurs and will go on to solve many new things.
A lot of these people are from Delhi, maybe they're from around here, but I think you'll find that the real fever will actually come from outside the metros. I mean, I'm not saying these people don't have the fever, but it's fantastic to see how India's grown into the smaller towns. And it's grown largely because people like Google have made information available to them. Yeah. So Google has almost democratized society to that extent.
Exciting to hear.
Okay, we've got a teacher. This way. Malini Narayanan. From Army Public School, Shankar Vihar?
Yeah.
All right.
Morning.
Sorry, I'll turn back this way.
There you are, ma'am.
Yeah. A special moment to interact with you. Must also tell you that we have over 200, 300 school students here, and I head the Army Public School. I'm the principal. My question to you is, the Indian education system has done extremely well. We have you in Google, and that is the proof of the pudding. We want to know, how do we now adapt ourselves to become future ready? And what are the skills and the techniques that the children now need to learn so that they have an edge over the other competitors? There are plenty of nations fielding people. So how do we get the edge over the other nations of the world?
Thank you. For me, I think a way, as you said, India has a strong educational system, and there's a culture of valuing education, which is phenomenal. I think ways in which we could move forward would be, for me, if I look at what is needed to solve the next generation of problems, creativity is an important attribute. I think so. Encouraging more creativity through the educational system. Today, I do think our educational system values, rigorous academic knowledge over necessarily, being more creative in how you approach education. I think that's important. Another thing I would say is, and I think I've seen it in the best schools in the US, etc. It's what I call it's very experiential, very hands-on. People learn how to do things by doing them, and not just by learning about them, right? And I think that's a big difference. So, to me, so allowing a system in which there's a lot more creativity, learning how to get things done by hand, and so much more of a project-based experiential learning are all, I think, trends which the Indian educational system needs to adopt. And I also think it's important to teach students to take risks, and and making sure the system doesn't penalize for you to take risks, and if you're different. And so those are all attributes which I think are important. So.
You have no idea how popular you just became with her students. No, but it's interesting because a lot of the time in the Indian education system, as I was getting my son to study for his exams, and he said they're only testing me on what someone else has already answered. They're not allowing me to learn for myself. And what Google has done now is Google gives all the answers to the questions that are going to come in the exam. So how do people study? And it's a very valid question that she asked. How do we study now? So the education system has now got to adapt to the fact that Google is giving you all the answers anyway. Maybe that's one of the reasons why we are very good at re-engineering, but not as good as inventing. So, okay, there you are. Thank you, Mani. Thank you very much. Okay, we've got another video question coming for us. Here's an interesting one. Can we play the video, please?
Hi Sundar, why do we still not have Indian desserts as Android OS names? Like N for Naan Khatai, N for Neyappam, or maybe P for Peda?
You know, when I meet my mom, I'll ask her for suggestions, and you know, but maybe what I'll do next time is when we are working on the next release of Android N, maybe we will do an online poll on what the name should be, and if all Indians vote, I think we can make it happen.
Let me tell you one thing about Indians online. The only community that ever wins online polls are Indians. Because we just have such numbers.
Which is why I'm suggesting it.
I suspect your mother might say when you get to P that P for payasam will be good.
Though, you know, though when I was young, you know, I never liked sweets. Now I do. You know, I used to take the payasam and actually add sambar to it so that it didn't taste that sweet.
Any of you did that? S is long way away. We won't wait for S for sambar. So. Okay, there's a lot of people who've also used social media to send in questions as well. So let's get the first one that's coming off the screen, and it's coming from Rishikesh More, or using the hashtag #AskSundar. Is there any possibility that companies in the IT, computer, internet sector, as big or as successful as Google, can be created in India? And the world comes to India for service. You'll see this theme coming through. There's a great latent pride among a lot of people. So this will keep coming through. If yes or no, what do you think is holding us back?
You know, if I can answer this question with a slightly longer term view, I think absolutely. You know, there is nothing intrinsic I see why from India, you know, we cannot do what you know, people have achieved externally. So there's nothing intrinsically. You know, there are probably a set of structural reasons why it hasn't fully happened yet, but you know, those barriers are slowly going away, right? And a big part of it is, to the earlier question, a culture of startups and risk taking. And I think, you know, India's historically had a much more of a professional culture and a culture of entrepreneurial approach. You know, it's been very, very exciting to see. To me, a bigger thing to go with that would be, as the internet reaches more users in India, and India has a billion user base, like China now has, or it's getting to, then people, you know, when you tackle problems in India, you can think about big problems, right? And so you can be very ambitious in what you tackle. And the part of doing that is what leads to big global companies. So I am absolutely confident this will happen in India. It's just a matter of time. It's not, you know, so it's going to happen.
One of the things you do very well, and you must have done in your personal life at some point, was to think big, think scale. Was that part of you? Can that be learned? The ability to just think of something big, think scale? Or was the environment around you after you traveled to the US, did that nurture this ability to think big? And maybe that will be part of the answer that Rishikesh was asking.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. Some of it is, you know, I do think Google played a big part in it. You know, I think at Google always, you know, we used to think about solving problems. You know, always what we would look for is, will it one day apply to 1 billion people, right? And so if we did something, will it work for 1 billion people? And we wanted to work on problems which people used in their everyday life. And so we always asked those questions. So everything we did, you know, when we worked on even simple things like, at the time, Google Books, the approach was, what if we could scan all the books in the world and bring them online? And so there was an inherent assumption of scale in everything we taught, and so that really helped shape my thinking.
Excellent. So guys, think scale. Okay, we're going back. I think where's Sushma from the North Cap University? Sushma, you around somewhere?
Yeah. Hi.
Ah, there you are.
Hi. Good afternoon, sir. So we heard that Google committed to provide the broadband connectivity on almost 500 railway stations in support for the Digital India initiative. So, sir, the question is, how do you think this is going to benefit Google, and how do you think India is going to get benefited from such an initiative?
We are very excited about the public Wi-Fi project. It's the largest public Wi-Fi undertaking in the world, because the 400 railway stations which we are working on, each day will get over 10 million passengers. And we are talking about real high-speed connectivity through Wi-Fi. So you can watch your favorite Bollywood videos in high definition, and many more things. The reason we are doing it is, in India, any time I felt, when you bring access to the internet, it literally changes people's lives. And doing it in public places like the railway stations will expose many people to the internet for the first time. And so that's why we are very interested in doing it. I think a lot of things in India is about driving awareness. And, if we are serious about getting the next, for all the scale and potential of India, there are still 1 billion users who don't have connectivity. So how do you go towards making that happen? And it's a long journey, it's a process, so we want to figure out many different approaches to it. We think the railways Wi-Fi would be one big step in that direction.
Excellent. Remember some of our own train journeys, and gee, what would we have given to have had Wi-Fi on a train journey?
Wow,
then?
yeah. I used to take the Coromandel Express from Chennai to Kharagpur, and at that time I wasn't worried about Wi-Fi. I was worried about getting food on the way, but Wi-Fi would have been awesome.
So Kharagpur is known for two things, really, wasn't it? Kharagpur is known for the IIT, and Kharagpur is known for the longest railway platform.
When you had to carry your luggage all the way and you got off on the wrong end, it wasn't that much fun.
It'll be a big platform to provide Wi-Fi, though.
I hope we do it. I'm not sure whether it's on the list of 400, but hopefully we do it there.
Okay, here's a question from a lady from Miranda House, Delhi University. She couldn't be here, so we're asking the question on her behalf. Shreya Verma. What will Google do to involve women in technology? There are very few women in the app ecosystem.
It's a global problem. I think the problem is particularly pronounced in India. We do see, women account for less than 1/3 of internet usage, and it's particularly worse off in rural areas. One of the things is, we did an amazing pilot project in which it's called Internet Sati, where we literally had women drive these bicycles. And these bicycles are equipped with, just with a set of smartphones in the back and a tablet. And so the women go from village to village, and we have done this in 1,000 villages. And they teach other women, how to go online. What does it mean to go use a smartphone and connect it? The thing which you find striking is most women in rural areas don't think the internet applies to them. They think it's something for their husbands, for their sons, and so there's a big learning that's needed there. To me, every time, it is one of the most important things we can do as a country, I think, is to help get these women online. There's a lot of people working on it. We are happy to play a small part in this. We just announced that we would expand the program, which we are doing in partnership with Tata Trust. We would expand this to cover 300,000 villages in the next 3 years. That's half of the villages in India. And we'll be working with the government to make it work more effectively as well. But helping get women online, I think, is an incredibly important thing. And if we do it better, I'm sure there'll be many more women developers one day when I come back.
There's a point of view that India's next big leap will come when more women enter the kind of things you're talking about as well. So hopefully, all you young women, get into apps. Get into apps and take the message around as well. What we are seeing, though, is in the 10th standard and 12th standard exam, and guys, you don't want to hear this, But the girls are beating the boys hands down.
It was true, and I was there as well.
Okay, Ruchika Salwan from the Department of Computer Science, University of Delhi. There you are.
Greetings, sir. I'm honored to interact with you in person, and welcome to India, first of all. Sir, my question for you is, how is your vision for Google different from that of Larry Page and Sergey Brin?
I worked with them very closely for many, many years. I think part of why we have been able to do this together is we kind of share the same aspirations. We, of course, have a lot of differences, and we debate approaches to how you solve problems. But at a high level, all of us have felt that you can use technology and computer science to solve problems at scale, big problems which will make a difference in people's day-to-day lives. We've always been interested in doing that. So that's the common thread by which we have thought about problems. And so I do, I share a lot more in common than not. So.
Didn't you ever sort of get up one morning and say, you know what, these two guys produced a world-changing company, and they want to give it to me?
They're still very involved. I think they are equally ambitious, and they want to do a lot more with it. But I think for me it was truly a privilege to get this opportunity, and so I'm excited for it.
Okay, we've got another from social media. There's 2 or 3 guys who've sent in this question. So can we get it off the screen, please? Okay, Naveen Subramaniam, Shravan Ravi, Vishal Goenka. There are many Google services and products that are not available in India. Why is that, and what are the plans to make them available? You know all those names. Some of Google's biggest services aren't available here, says Shravan as well. Vishal's asking that too.
It's a good question. We do work hard to bring our services to India. So, for example, I see the question has Project Loon, and we are working very hard to bring a Project Loon experiment to India to start with, and it's part of what I came here working on. So we are working very, very hard to bring everything we want to India. But increasingly, we also see an opportunity to do things first in India, and then actually it'll work for global markets too. So, for example, YouTube Offline, we first did it in India last year, and now it's in 77 countries worldwide. So we see that as a good template by which how we approach things in the future. So which is why we are investing a lot more in India. Part of it is we are expanding our engineering offices in India significantly. We're going to be building a big new campus in Hyderabad, and so I'm excited about what we can do here and take it globally to the rest of the world.
So more and more products are going to be built in India?
Yeah, it's a goal. It's a goal that, especially for markets, mobile, the way it's scaling up, we do think we can do things here which will apply globally elsewhere.
Excellent. Everybody, get on, buy your tickets, go to Hyderabad. Okay, from Amity University, where's Jassing Bhasin?
Hey.
There you are.
Hi, Sundar.
Hello.
I have an interesting question for you. I had read somewhere that you have unusual gift that seemed a little more than a curiosity when you were a child, but has served you incredibly well in adulthood, which is insane numerical recall, and can remember every number you have ever dialed. Is it true?
It's no longer true, but at the time when I was in India, we were lucky because the phone numbers are only 6 digits, so that helped. And Google didn't exist then, so people all over my family and friends, if they wanted to call a phone number, they would just ask me. And so I just got used to the habit of remembering every phone number I had called or I had heard about. But when I went to the US, the phone digits were, first of all, 10 digits, so made it much harder. But as soon as I got a smartphone which started storing phone numbers, I stopped thinking about them. So I can't do it now, but I used to be able to do it a long time ago.
Jeez, you reach a stage when everybody's younger than you. When we were kids growing up in Hyderabad, the first telephones that came had 2-digit numbers. So you actually knew everybody who had a telephone, let alone remembering the telephone number. Okay, we've got a question on video coming up. I think there's Meghna from IIT Kharagpur. They all seem very excited about asking you questions from IIT Kharagpur. So let's get it off the video screen.
Hi, my name is Meghna and I'm from IIT Kharagpur. My question is, Google or Alphabet is no longer restricted to being only a search engine, but we seldom hear about any non-computer science undergraduates working at Google. Why is that, and what is the recruitment procedure for these people? Thank you.
It's not. I mean, we do hire a lot of people, who are non-computer science undergrads. If you look at the scale of Google, to do something, to do a product well, building the product is only one aspect of it, right? You want to be able to build it, you want to scale it, take it to market. How you take it to market? How do you market it? How do you sell it in certain cases? The end-to-end work that takes to make a product happen. It's a very cross-functional thing. So we hire people from all kinds of backgrounds. There are language majors at Google, people who have done history, people who have done business, commerce, and engineering. So, I'm confident. In fact, a majority of people at Google probably don't have computer science as an undergrad background overall. So follow your dreams, and you can work wherever you want.
Also tells your life is changing. I thought in that photograph in the background there was a badminton racket and what looked like a guitar. Did you have that at IIT Kharagpur?
I think so.
You might have. Excellent.
Yeah.
So how many of your non-computer science graduates who want to work in Google? Now the number of non-computer science hands were less than the number of hands saying they want to work in Google. Okay. Now there's almost a pattern now to all interviews in India where the host is required to ask rapid-fire questions of the guests. These are not my questions. The only condition is that the questions will be asked quickly and the answers are short.
Okay.
But your answers are always short. Okay, here we go, Sundar. Okay, rapid fire questions. When did you buy your first phone?
Smartphone?
Any phone? Not the one in Chennai.
The rotary phone. It was a Motorola StarTAC. This was probably 95, 96, yeah.
And the first smartphone?
I thought it was a smartphone, but the first smartphone I bought was probably in 2006.
Actually, here's another question. How many smartphones do you have? Because I think you'll find the average in this room is not one.
I tested. Probably in my house there are probably 20 to 30. I shouldn't admit it.
That is such disastrous news for kids who don't buy their own phones. Okay. Do you think coding should be made compulsory for everyone?
I don't think it should be made compulsory, but I think it should be strongly encouraged. Yeah. So.
What was your first software project?
Just learn. Trying to build a rudimentary version of like chess and games like that. That's what I did first.
Why do you look at him and think it might have been chess? For all the talk about Barcelona and cricket. Okay, I promise you I have nothing to do with this question. How much did you score in your class 12?
Not enough to get into Sriram College of Commerce.
And of course, to get into IIT Kharagpur, you had to write an exam.
Yeah, but it wasn't based on my class 12 grades, yeah.
How important are class 12 grades anyway? No, it's a serious question because when we were growing up, class 10 and class 12 grades were everything. There were some people who were good enough to write entrance exams and get into IITs, right? Some of us weren't.
Yeah.
So we had to live with our 10th and 12th standard grades.
There are too many teachers in the room for me to answer that question.
Okay, last one. Where do you see Google in the next 30 years?
I think it's a long question. I just want to make sure the next 30 years we are still able to work on problems which really work for people on a day-to-day basis, hopefully at that point serve all of humanity in a profound way. So that's where I want to be.
And that is important to Google, isn't it?
It is. It is a core part of at least what drew me to Google. I think the chance that we could work on products which would one day, reach everyone in the world. I didn't have access to computing growing up, and once I got access to it, it changed my life. And so I've always been interested in, this is why we work on affordable Android smartphones or Chromebooks, and being able to reach everyone, I think it's a foundational part of what we do.
It's 2 o'clock. We've got our last question coming up, and it's coming off our screen. Right, everyone, all eyes on the screen. Gagan Kaira. Why is the special edition, well, I'm going to just correct the spellings as I go. Why is the special edition Star Wars cardboard not available for Indians? This is one of those applause, that kind of applause that is going to grow as it goes around.
We should figure out. These are these amazing, we just handed them out at Google last week before I left, and they're really amazing ones. Wouldn't it be nice if we could give one to everyone in the room here?
Does everyone include people on the stage as well?
So hopefully, I think that's the way we are going to make it happen. So we'll figure out a way to get it to everyone here today.
It's so typical of you, as I've got to know you in the last hour, to make a huge announcement in such an understated manner. So everyone's going to get one, guys. What do you think of that? There is one other thing I have to do, because it's now the thing that all Indians do. But you don't get to take it, I do. This is, and for someone who has technology challenge as me, this is a big challenge. This is a 360-degree selfie. Okay, so I'll take a couple. I don't know if you can stand that far apart, but I'll aim it at you. It's okay if I don't get in, but it's 360 I will, I guess. Okay, there you are, and I'll come closer. Sit. This is everyone's fanboy moment. Yeah. There you are. It's incredible. I saw some of these, and for someone as challenged as me, it sort of blew my mind to do a 360-degree selfie, which means everybody is in it. So, there you are. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, all of you there as well. Thank you. Pleasure, Sundar.
Thank you so much, everyone, for being such a spectacular audience. Can we please have a round of applause for all of you? It is